Welcome back, podcast friends. Welcome to HERPath, the podcast for busy women looking for purpose, health, and happiness. My name is Gabby. Let's dive into another episode. Today, we want to talk about mind blocks and mindset and how this can keep us from achieving our goals. What exactly is a mental block, though? So a mental block is a psychological or mental obstacle that keeps us from performing a specific task, accessing particular skills that we have within us already, keeping us from accessing some of our own information that we've gathered over time through experience, despite having the skills and the ability to do all the things. It's kind of like hitting a barrier in your brain that keeps you from thinking clearly or acting effectively. And it can show up in a variety of ways. Sometimes it can show up as feelings of anxiety, feelings of self-doubt. It can show up as feelings of confusion, or simply as an inability to generate ideas or solutions. And we've all been in that situation where we feel like we have a physical wall that we can't get past when it comes to our mindset and our thinking. When we hit a mental obstacle or we have one of those mind blocks, we can feel stressed, we can fear failure, we are addressed with the lack of perfectionism, we can get hit with the lack of confidence, or we can bring up all of the past negative experience that have come up in similar situations, giving us evidence of how we can never get past it. Some examples of what these mind blocks can look like are procrastination is a big one. I don't know, ladies, if you've ever had to deal with procrastination. So that's one of the biggest mind blocks I think that a lot of us struggle with is, you have shit to do. You know that it's important. You know that the outcome is wonderful, but you just can't get yourself to move past it. Beth, how do you deal with procrastination?
Frequently I indulge in procrastination. But after that, I give myself grace and realize that, there is something that's happening internally that is preventing me from moving forward. And rather than beating myself up over it, just having some compassion and knowing that it'll come when it's time. And then there's other times where I just, take the bull by the horns and say, I know you don't want to do it, but we're doing it anyways. Let's go.
Right. That's what I have to do for myself too, is I know you don't want to do it, but getting it done is going to take less time than you actually think. And then you get this weight lifted off your shoulders once you accomplish that task.
Yeah.
And then you realize that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. What about you, Nancy?
Well, I do procrastinate. It's probably my favorite thing to do. But for me, I mean, I don't do it all the time, but for sure, I grab a coaching session with someone for sure, because that really helps me to really get through that. But one of the things I like to do is to, think back on when there was something that I had procrastinated in the past and when I finished it, and that just focus on that feeling, that sensation of accomplishing it. For me, I think I can generate a really positive sensation in my body. And when it is fear, I always say to myself, okay, fear, you're coming with, you can sit in the passenger seat, but you're not driving the car.
I like that. That's wonderful that you have that insight to be able to talk to yourself, to talk to your own mind, to talk to that feeling that is really kind of pushing that
I call it
sensation or
my
that
lizard
procrastination.
brain. I call it my lizard brain, that
Right.
amygdala, the fear brain. I call her Lizzie.
Yeah,
So I
because
give
she's
her,
always there.
she's always there. And I know she just wants to protect me for sure. So I talk to her nicely and I say, okay, we're really going to focus on the feeling of having that accomplishment, and it's going to feel so darn good. So getting her to agree with me is really helpful.
How about you, Elise? How do you handle that block, that procrastination?
Yeah, I'm really good at indulging it as well. And I will sit with it for a little bit. And I usually get sick of the feeling, the weight of it hanging over my head. the weight of it can be crushing to me. So at some point I will say, enough of this. I cannot take this feeling anymore. I just got to get it done. And that's usually how I get through it. I have, project management tactics that I can use. I am very structured in my appointments, in my days, in my checklists. I love me a good checklist, as you all know. And I can use my checklist to help me. Like, you're not going to do the fun things until you get through this thing, right? And then I'll check it off and I'll give myself a couple extra stars and just, yay, I did it. But I love the idea of getting in touch with that feeling of why. And for me, it's not usually fear. It's usually my procrastination comes in a lot when it comes to writing. So I write a newsletter, I write a blog, I write, content for this podcast. There's a lot of writing in my world, and I can get tired of it. And if I can get inspired on a topic, then I can just power through and write it all out. Sometimes it's sitting there trying to think, okay, what's the topic for the next blog? What is going to be the theme of this newsletter? So if I can work through that part, then I can sit down and do it.
That leads me to my next example of one of those mental blocks, which is feeling like you have a blank mind when you're trying to generate new ideas. Like when you're sitting there trying to either write that blog or, come up with a strategy for, your next meeting or your next client, or, something creative that you intend to put out there in the world, but just feel like I don't have anything coming to me, or having that conversation with someone trying to, engage or participate, and feeling like I don't have anything interesting to add. I don't have any wonderful ideas that I could bring up. This can happen when you're in a meeting, sitting with a group of people at work, and it seems like everyone else has a better idea than you. It can happen when you are, in a social gathering with people and everyone seems to be chatting away and you seem like I'm in a corner because I don't know what to say, or, I don't have anything interesting about me. I'm so boring. So having that blank mind when trying to, I call it a blank mind. I don't know if you ladies call it something else or when you've experienced it, but feeling like I don't have anything to add. I don't have anything interesting to contribute. How have you all dealt with situations like that? How about you, Elise?
Yeah, so for the writing piece and the blog, the content development, I go back, when my mind is blank, I have that blank mind often. I'll go back to experiences. Where were the experiences that impacted me, that left a mark, that taught me something, that propelled me forward or propelled me backwards? And I'll use something out of that. What was the nugget? What was the thing? In social gatherings, I like to deflect from myself. And I don't know if that's right or wrong, but for me, it's easier to start talking about the other person. So tell me about, hey, we haven't met before, but we both know, my friend Jill. Tell me about yourself. Tell me, how you met Jill, how you blah, 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 whatever, or some way that connects us. So you're here at this event. What brought you to this event? What is this charity about? What is this, tell me about you. That always breaks the ice for me.
How about you, Nancy? How do you deal with that blank mind when you're trying to generate something?
For me, it's interesting because if I'm doing something like in the summer, if I'm mowing the lawn where like my mind is just like free and yet I'm physically doing something, ideas will come. It's like almost when I don't have a way to write them down, they come. Like if I'm in the bathtub, I get lots of ideas if I'm doing something, even if I'm a hands and knees floor washer, I don't like the mop. But if I'm on the floor washing, like doing something with my hands, either sweeping or back or something, ideas come. I know it's crazy, but there's got to be something neurologically that goes on. It's like my mind is off it and then it comes. A lot of times too, like the night before, I'll set an intention, like before I go to sleep. And in the morning, I wake up with like tons of ideas. In social situations, like this happens a lot for me. So I like to think ahead of time, like some ideas that I can talk about. So that helps me.
Those are wonderful strategies. And it's interesting that you mentioned how when you are distracted with another task, it seems
Mhm.
like your mind is liberated and open and exploding with ideas.
Exactly.
I think for me, it touches upon like the censoring yourself, you know, it's like your brain, or at least my brain, I feel like a lot of time wants to censor me, tell me, you know, oh, don't even think about saying that. You're going to, you know, offend somebody, or someone's going to think that is terrible idea, or, you know, you're going to make a jackass out of yourself, or people are not going to think you're smart enough. And so I think all of those things for me, when I'm actively in a situation, like actively wanting to think about what to do, what to say, how to portray it, that it's more like a censoring. And then over time, my brain has just gotten used to it, that it just goes quiet in those spaces.
Mhm.
And so just like you mentioned, also thinking ahead of time, okay, this is what I want to present. This is what I want to say, or I'm going to bring up these pearls, or I'm going to ask questions about this ahead of time, kind of helps counteract some of that self-censoring to feel like I can contribute, because it's all in there already. I mean, you already, you know, we already have all of that information and creativity and and there's a lot to add, but it's just that self-censoring, because we're such a harsh critic of ourselves, can just block that creativity and block that ability to participate or feel confident in participating or bringing up new ideas. How about you, Beth?
Well, I was going to say, like, as Nancy was talking about, you know, as she's doing something, mowing the lawn or doing a task, you know, that's a kind of a mundane task, that's when ideas will come to me. Or being, for me, I live in Colorado. And so anytime I'm out on a hiking trail and walking, and ideas will just start flooding, or driving out into the countryside. And the most, you know, inopportune times when you can't write anything down, happen frequently to me. So I definitely get that same thing that Nancy does. And, you know, in social situations, I'm like Elise. It's a lot easier for me to talk to somebody else about themselves if I don't have an idea or something to share, like in a group setting or like in a meeting, a work meeting. If there is an idea that I agree with, I'll just maybe just add on a little bit to what somebody else has already thought or said. And I think a lot of times I will just be the observer rather than the participant in those situations. Yeah.
And that's okay too. I find myself putting myself in that situation too, where if I'm actively engaged and enjoying it, to be okay with being the observer, the watcher, the listener. I think I get into trouble when I do a lot of comparing myself to, oh, that person has a lot going on, or wow, they have so many ideas, or oh my God, they're saying they always have something quirky and funny and smart to say. When I start going down that rabbit hole for myself, then I get into this really critical kind of space that again shuts down that creativity, creates that mental block, and it's more out of a lot of negative self-talk that sometimes starts to come in. Over time, though, kind of with practicing positive affirmations and journaling, because I have gotten to the point where I could be aware of that negative self-talk when it's happening in future situations when it comes up and it's blocking the ability to participate or get certain results in a conversation or through work. It gets a lot easier to kind of push that negativity, that criticism away, to be able to allow that creativity and allow that work or that engagement to happen. What are some other examples that you all can think of mind blocks or kind of obstacles that keep us from really putting ourselves out in the world? Can you all, Elise, what do you?
Yeah. So when I was thinking about this topic, in the work that I do, which focuses around busy career women, and a lot of when I think about mental blocks and when I listen to clients talk about mental blocks, I think about the environment and our social norms and workplace cultures. So things like imposter syndrome, not ever feeling like you're good enough or you have enough skills or you have the right degree. That self-doubt that we all have, not seeing the facts of where we've been and our good attributes, but really thinking those thoughts, I'm not good enough, I shouldn't speak up, I shouldn't be here, what if they find out? The whole concept of self-worth comes up for me, especially in the workforce, because we as women are not always taught about our own self-worth. And that's some of the beauty and the power of the coaching that we all do, the four of us, is teaching that self-worth and that self-love. Even, when I do my coaching circles, I bring clients through these exercises around, am I happy? Am I fulfilled? Does my job give me purpose? Does my life give me purpose? I will ask these questions. And first of all, it's surprising to me that women don't ever think about that. They never take the time to stop and think about themselves in that deep way. What do I want from my life? Am I fulfilled? Am I happy? Do I have purpose? But teaching women how to do that, I think, is so important to kind of get over that mindset, because we can all get in that mindset. I'm a busy mom. I have to take care of my kids. I have to take care of my spouse or my partner. I have to take care of the people around me. If I'm in the sandwich generation, I need to take care of my parents. And then I need to do this job. And the job will sometimes take me where it takes me. And I never stop to think, is that what I want? So I really tried to take this topic and apply it to the women that I work with. And those are some of the things that came up for me.
What about you, Beth?
Well, I think the self-doubt and self-criticism is something that comes up a lot. And I think that's normal for all of us. We have a human brain, and that was part of our survival, is like judging and evaluating and analyzing and comparing. And now that we are, in this world that we're in, that seems to be where we're getting tripped up and blocked in a lot of the times. And so it's just this part of our brain that is innate in us, and then it's happening, and then it happens, and then we're beating ourselves up because it's happening. And so for me, just reminding myself in those situations when I do have a block, or there is like I'm falling into, comparing myself and like how far I am, or all of those things, just to remind myself that it's normal. You have a human brain, and there's nothing that's gone wrong. Yeah.
I love that. And Nancy, how do you tackle those situations when you get overly self-critical and negative and find yourself in that block mentally?
Well, first I got to ask myself, am I getting enough sleep? Am I getting enough nutrition? The other thing too is I do hypnotherapy. And so I work a lot with people and their inner critics, and we create the inner cheerleader. So having the conversation with the inner critic, getting to know the inner critic, and yet knowing why it came in, when it came in, the benefit of it, and yet creating the inner cheerleader can be really, really helpful for people.
I love that. Something that I hear from all of us is identifying the root cause is very, very important. And so that does require some aspect of self-awareness and acknowledging what is going on in the moment, that you are experiencing some sort of mental block, some emotion, some thought process that's happening in the moment that is keeping you from being your full self, because all of it is already in there. You already have the knowledge, you already have the experience, you already have the ability that's already within you, but something is keeping you from accessing it. So already just having that awareness, like that is happening in the moment, is very powerful. And that allows you to identify, okay, what is it that is going on for me right now? Is it that I'm comparing myself with that person? Is it that I am feeling inadequate? Am I feeling like an imposter, even though I have all the knowledge? And that'll happen to me. For example, I'm a doctor, and I can be in a room of brand new doctors and feel like, oh my God, these people, they know a lot more than me. Or, they have more experience. Somebody questions something that I've been doing for the longest time and already feel inadequate, feel like maybe I'm missing something. Do I not know something? Is there some new information out there that I'm not aware of? And then I start, my brain starts being that asshole to me, like, oh no, you don't know. Everybody's smarter than you. You barely made it. And acknowledging that happens, and then being able to know, I got this. Stop it, brain. We got this. We're okay. We know what to do. We've done it a million times and been successful at it. It takes practice of having that awareness that is happening, knowing that I'm being self-critical, and then having a solution for it, trusting myself, having my own back, feeling that I know what to do and it's going to be okay. But it takes time to really get into that place where it's not so automatic just to go the negative route and shut yourself down. So challenging that negativity is uncomfortable, but is necessary in order to get through that block. Elise, you want to add?
Just, one of the tools that I use to get through that block is what you're saying to yourself. Is it fact or story? Is it fact or story? And if it's fact, give me the data. Give me the supporting information. Prove it, right? Almost prove it to me that that's a fact.
Right.
Because
and for successful women, we want the facts. We don't want the bullshit. We want to see, okay, give me the facts. Give me the truth.
Absolutely. And I do. I kind of stand tall there and say, we're not moving forward until you show me the data, show me the facts of this. Because it can be so ingrained in us, right? From our childhood, from what we see around us. That's the way it's always been. But really pointing out truth or story is so, it's such an eye opener for people. It's that moment like, oh my God, I've been telling myself this story this whole time.
And challenging those fixed beliefs that we have, right? Sometimes we just have these beliefs that we think, like you say, that we feel like that's the truth and that's just how it is, and being adaptable, allowing your brain to adapt, allowing your brain to challenge some of those thoughts that you just thought it's just true. This is just how it is. And then also being okay with not being perfect. I think that's something that took me a while to embrace, is that, yeah, maybe I don't know it all. Maybe there is somebody else who has better knowledge. It may even be one of my patients who may teach me something new. Hey, doc, I read this online. What do you think about this new treatment? I've never heard of it. Why don't you tell me about it? But it took me a long time to get to that point where I was okay with not being right all the time, not knowing everything, and admitting that. And it gives so much freedom. There's just so much, allows me to, show up as my best self when I'm not so worried about being perfect and being right all the time and being the absolute expert at whatever it is.
And I would add that sometimes it takes like a defining event in our lives to push us past that need for perfection and to always show up perfectly and to always, to your point, to always have the answers, knowing the latest studies, all the things. I find that trying to do that on your own can be hard. But sometimes a traumatic event, a defining event, a life-changing event can be that thing that makes you stop and pause and say, I don't have to be, screw it. I don't have to be perfect all the time. I can make mistakes. I can ask for help. I can say I don't know. And I wonder if any of you have ever had the ability to develop that without having some major event, or teach clients that.
I think teaching clients that is the best, because I think we learn through teaching other people for sure. And I was just thinking in our conversation, it would be amazing if this was taught when we were younger. I mean, I'm just learning all this in my 60s now, and I think, oh my gosh, if they could teach this, or we can teach this to younger women, it would be incredible how the trajectory of their life could switch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I try, to the kiddos, to my children. I have 4 kids, and so I have tried so hard to impart some of this, and I know some of that is in there. And sometimes they don't want to hear it. They'll be like, "Oh, mom, don't psychoanalyze me. Oh, mom, I'm not one of your coaching clients." And it hurts, when they say that. But we're always taught, don't coach someone, without their consent, or force someone into a coaching session. But at least with my kiddos, slowly putting some of those ideas in there, it seeps in. So I think at least starting with our family, our kiddos, can make a big impact.
Yeah, for me, I those learning defying moments, it's like I call them when life comes and kicks you in the ass. Like that just you can't help but pay attention, and it forces you to look at your situation or your circumstances in a different way, maybe asking for help, being vulnerable when you don't want to be. But to answer that question, I don't. I think maybe like in little pieces, little nuggets, maybe some change, or and that coming, but along, and just the change is just so subtle that it's not noticed, versus the defining moments in life where it's a huge like transformation.
I like to always give the example to the kiddos of, see, hard work does pay off. And I tell them I wasn't the smartest in my class. I wasn't the valedictorian. I got C's. I flunked some classes. I had to drop out of college, for a spell. But I kept working hard and kept at it. It kept believing that things are possible if I had, faith in myself, continue to work at it, and it will work out. And having that faith, despite being knocked down, obstacles, barriers in every kind of way, in family support, financial, relationship issues, as long as you keep having your own back and keep, having faith in yourself, that you will succeed. And it's hard, and it takes hard work. And it's not always rose petals and hummingbirds and, positive. Sometimes you're going to hit literal roadblocks down the road, but it's hard. And as long as you don't give up on yourself, you can do anything. And I am a firm believer in that.
And similar to that, I've really been spending a lot of time thinking about and talking about our future selves. As when you're telling your kids to work hard, what you're really doing is helping them almost see their future selves and tap into them. What would your future self want you to do? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? And what would they say to your behaviors now, or to your thoughts now, or to this mind block now? How can your future self help you get past that?
Yeah, and I love the resource of journaling, because kind of having that daily practice of getting your thoughts and your feelings and experiences down on paper so that you can really examine what is going on for you and decide whether or not those thoughts that are, running through your mind, whether you want to keep them, whether they're helpful for you, whether they serve any purpose, and maybe intentionally thinking about or putting down on paper in your journal thoughts that you feel would be more helpful for you, generate more positive feelings, or even neutral feelings that serve you better so that you can have a better outcome in those situations in the future, and help you get past some of those mental blocks with more ease, because they're still going to come no matter how experienced and how expert and how awesome you are. You're still going to have those mental blocks and barriers.
I think they just help us grow, those blocks and barriers, even when you're kicked down. I've had a lot of experiences, and there's nothing I regret, because, I like who I am today, and I feel like I am the sum total accumulation of all those experiences.
Yeah. And also having an amazing coach, like you women, for me, have been amazing coaches. You have been super objective, non-judgmental. And, I think for all of us, having a coach that can, because it's the game of life. So, if you think about it as a sporting event, the game of life, even those amazing athletes with all those abilities, they have coaches that can help augment what they already have within them. And so similarly, having a coach in your life, I think, is invaluable that can help you objectively hold that space for you to bring out what is already within you so you can have the best results in how you're feeling and functioning on a daily basis.
I agree.
Me too.
Amen.
Yep. Preach.
Well, thank you all for joining us this week. I hope you enjoyed. I know we definitely enjoyed talking with you, and look forward to meeting with you again next week. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, one more thing before we leave. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. We are certified professional coaches, but this broadcast is not a substitute for medical or psychological advice. Okay, thanks for listening. See you next week.